Whoa!
Welcome to the What's Up Verdict podcast. We fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host Mattson Heiner.
It's been a hot minute, everyone, but I'm back, better red than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
It's been a cool hour, but I'm still here. Let's get it.
That's right. That's right. We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead, hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification, all those fun buttons that help you keep up with all of our episodes. Tell a friend about us. Tell an enemy about us. Tell your dog, your cat. Tell your imaginary friend about us too. We like those guys. They're fun. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit before we jump into this movie because we got a couple of announcements. One, I'm sure we'll talk about at the end of the episode too, but I want to get out in the front. We're going to be reviewing, going back live. Actually, if you're listening to this on Monday before 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, fuck Central. I have to be careful with that now, though, because all of the people I work with at my new job are Central Time. So if you're listening, I love you. Anyway, I'm gonna play. So we're gonna be live doing The Last of Us, and then later on in the month on the 20th. So the following week, Alec and I will be going live for The Legend of Vox Machina season 2. So we're looking forward to that. So we're gonna have some live shows again. Starting up, we'll follow every episode like we were on previous television shows. In addition to this, because I'm such a nerd and a fan of this, we're going to try something new. I'm going to live stream myself playing the first game that this season is going to follow. I don't know if all the way to the end, but at least it will follow the majority. It looks like it's going all the way to the end to me, but and so we're going to live shoot probably a couple hours a day next week to get to the first game. After we starting on Tuesday, I guess it would be the 17th of January. So if you're interested in watching that, you'll find us on Facebook, YouTube, where we are live. Just check out What's Our Verdict on either one of them. And these guys will be popping in and out of the live stream, talking the TV show, talking the game, just because I'm so obsessed with it. Talking shit, talking nonsense, but it should be fun. At any rate. So yeah, there's that fun announcement. Tune in for all of that fun shit. We're looking forward to it. With that, today we're here to review The Pale Blue Eye. It was released January 6th, 2023. It was written and directed by Scott Cooper, based on the book by Louis Bayard. It stars Christian Bale, Harry Melling, Toby Jones, Timothy Spall, Simon McBurney, Harry Lottie, Lucy Boynton, Gillian Anderson, and Robert Duvall. A world-weary detective is hired to investigate the murder of a West Point cadet. Stymied by the cadet's code of silence, he enlists one of their own to help unravel the case, a young man the world would come to know as Edgar Allan Poe. It's a relatively new movie, so if you haven't seen this one, you want to avoid spoilers. Pause podcast, go check it out on Netflix, come back, pick up where you left off, and because we're gonna talk some serious spoilers, and there's a lot to spoil in this show. It's yeah, me too. Like I thought it was gonna be. I didn't realize we were gonna be doing our third whodunit in a row.
Whodunit murder mystery.
Yeah, I was like, man, it feels like 2023 is the whodunit year so far. So
it seemed to have a theme going.
Yeah, pretty exciting though. It is the first movie released in 2023 that we're reviewing. So the new year is in hot effect moving forward. Yeah, let's talk this crazy movie. It was interesting. It was better than I thought, but very much more different than I thought. I thought there was going to be, yes. I mean, as soon as I saw The Pale Blue Eye, my brain immediately went, oh, this is Edgar Allan Poe. But I thought we'd see a little bit more of Edgar Allan Poe's stories or some of the more, his darker, I can't say this show wasn't dark because it had some very dark elements to it, but like he wrote some very morose shit. So like I was expecting to see more tie-ins to some of his actual stories and poetry, which isn't the case. It's a completely different story.
The Edgar Allan Poe origin story.
Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't expecting that at all. I
Yeah.
liked it.
Sure.
Well, it went over well, but yeah, I was lost. Like
Poe did go to
little
West
bit.
Point, so
He
that's like
did.
the only like real tie into this, and they threw in like little bits of, I don't know if it was actual poetry from him, but type of poetry that he would kind of write with that morbid stuff, or macabre is probably the right thing to say there. So I think to Alec's point, yeah, I was like, the more I watched this, I was like, oh, they kind of blended an origin story with some other investigator that Christian Bale played, and the more I watched it, I was like, this is not what I thought I was going to be watching, but I don't have a problem that I'm watching this. This is quite good. I don't, like we're saying, I don't think anyone really knew what we were going to watch, but it was pretty intriguing.
Yeah. There were some interesting Easter eggs for Poe, though. Like there was a couple of shots with ravens in it.
Yeah, they
right
did that.
in the top parts of the screens, like there's the raven, and then there was a hint. So the character Landor, the detective, is a made up character for the novel. Wasn't a real character or anything like that, or even based on anyone real. However, Poe did have a poem, I believe. I think it was a poem or a short story called Landor's Cottage. So that's where that character got his name, plus the fact that he lived in a cottage. And
He did say he was going to write a poem about him.
Well, yeah, so that there was that tie-in and that little, some little Easter eggs there. And then there was obviously the heart, the whole stealing of the heart thing that, hints at the Telltale Heart. So very interesting, because Edgar Allan Poe is one of my favorite authors. Very dark, very twisted, mystery type, horror leaning genre of writing. So I've always very much enjoyed Edgar Allan Poe. So it was fun. And then, of course, the tie-ins to the Pale Blue Eye of the whole murder mystery type thing too. So
just gonna go out on a limb here and say I don't really care for poetry except poetry in music, because otherwise I'm not really a poet. I remember trying to do haikus 575. That's about the extent of my poetry knowledge.
Yeah, I can't write that for shit, but I do enjoy reading it. And then in high school we did, it was my sophomore year in high school. My buddy Caleb played the bass guitar very well. And there, Metallica did like this instrumental, Call of Cthulhu is what it was called. There was no lyrics to it, but there was like a really cool bass line in the middle of it. So he played that bass line over us reading The Raven as like a poetry. It was dope as fuck. So yeah,
that is cool.
Yeah, it was way cool. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, other than the nice Edgar Allan Poe tie-in. So this is another one, and you guys, we've talked about it before. Me and Christian Bale have a weird relationship with me watching. I either love him or I hate him. There's no in between.
That was my question. Love or hate? What are we saying?
Loved it. I thought it was great. And I think mostly for me because it was a very different performance for him. Like, he's usually way over the top. And he's got usually some very strong, powerful characters or weird characters, and they're usually pretty flamboyant or pretty out there. And this character is not that. Like, it is subtle and subdued. And for the most part, it's a very quiet performance from him, where the first like hour that he's in there, 30 minutes of this movie that he's in it, the most dialogue you get is some humming and hawing from him, which were very emotive. And so I loved him. I thought
what's the movie we reviewed last year that had him and Margot Robbie and one other character that I should remember? It was during the war.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, Amsterdam. I was worried he was going to, not that he did bad in that movie, but I was worried he was going to play a character kind of more like that. But like you said, he was very subdued. And I was really impressed with his facial acting. You could just really feel, and I would say him and the Harry Potter Dudley actor that I should remember his actual name. Both of them, especially at the end, not to talk about what happened there, but man, just there wasn't a ton said, but there was a lot felt just because of the emotion in their body language and especially their faces. And that really was a lot of what this movie conveyed to me. I think it was well portrayed, because back then, I don't know, at times I feel like people said less, but it just, things were said through body language, and in a lot of ways we text now, that's all we do, but you had to lean into those things more back then with what you wrote, your body language and what you said. And I think they really portrayed that well.
Well, and there was a very specific proper language back then too, like especially when you had like new relationships that you had to be a little more formal, things like that. So I thought they did really well. The other thing I thought he did well was play off of Harry Melling very good. Like there was a nice dynamic of this quiet, gristled detective that obviously you could tell was kind of angry and sad. And then you had this, what was a very out of character for me. Like when we first meet Edgar Allan Poe, I'm like, wait, why is he so fucking happy? Like, it's like, this isn't my Edgar Allan Poe. Like, I need this twisted, because there's no way that dude was completely okay. You know what I mean? Like, the dude's been through some shit to write the stuff that he's written. So it was very interesting. But to me, Harry Melling stole this movie, even with what's his face in it, because like every time he was on scene, like, man, I could not. And I'm not a Harry Potter guy. I've never watched any of the Harry Potter movies, nor will I.
Charles, pay attention.
Stop it. I'll give Charles all his money back. Yeah, so I'm that's a matter of principle for me on that one. Yeah, so I've never watched any of those, so I didn't even know he was in those. But he's been in some other movies and TV shows, and he's not been my favorite. I really enjoyed him in this.
I'm a little concerned because I was typing in Harry Melling, and I was going to type in, does he's a weird looking dude. Let's just be completely straight up about that. I'm still kind of worried about that. But when I was typing in, does Harry Melling, and then it completed my sentence with have arms and legs, because he played a movie called Ballad of the Buster Scruggs where he didn't have arms and legs or something. So
wow.
That's just, I don't know. Harry Melling, if you're out there, Google's doing you dirty, because that's literally the first auto search that comes up. We need to get you some roles. That even came up before Harry Potter.
That's funny. That is funny. Yeah,
I do like his crazy eyes though.
Yeah,
like where he gets that dead, far away stare, because it worked really well with the last thing I saw him in was The Devil All the Time.
Yeah.
And in both this movie and that movie, he has the crazy eyes down, and he fits that kind of character perfectly.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think he's found his niche without a doubt.
Oh, I agree with you. I was thinking that, I was like, this dude's going to find his way into some psychological horror stuff or a villain like that, because he didn't have to teach himself how to act like that or look like that. He's just, his body physique, I just looked it up. He lost a ton of weight after Harry Potter, so he's totally fine. But the way his face is shaped and everything, he's just, I'm just going to be honest, man. He's got that look where I'm like, you ain't the most attractive dude on the planet, but you find the right roles, you're going to be, like, imagine him as like It or something, or some crazy freaky. He'd kill it. Freaky. Yeah. He'd be freaky.
Well, he was also in the Amazon TV like adaptation of His Dark Materials, and he played one of like the Magisterium's bad guys, like, and he killed it in the first season because he's creepy. Like, the guy's creepy, and he plays creepy really well. Like, I'm sure he's a very nice person, and I'm sure he's not actually creepy in real life, but he plays creepy. And you're right, the look really helps. Like, he just has that kind of sinister, pointed
like the way his eye, the chin,
yeah,
and his eyes sink in. Like, you can't. It's just what he looks like. So you don't. He just has it. So
yeah,
I don't. It was good enough where. Are they going to do something more? I'm just curious, like, because it's almost like an origin story. You could do more with him.
Yeah, well, and you throw a little weird wiry mustache on him, and he actually looked a lot like Edgar Allan Poe.
He did, yeah. Look, I was like, wow, he really fit that well, and they almost kind of did it like a Sherlock Holmes style thing, where I'm like, you could just turn Edgar Allan Poe into tie in little vague things from his poems and make him like a detective, or like he's just around creepy dead things and mysteries. I mean, it's basically what they did, and I thought it worked.
Yeah, yeah, and to Alec's point, like, it really is an origin story for Edgar Allan Poe, and it's really interesting to see. I think that was my favorite part of this whole movie from a storytelling perspective is, like I said, it was weird at first because he's really happy and kind of jovial, and, you know, seemed like he was really, because he was always really outspoken, and he's, talking too much with the detective and running through these scenarios and telling stories. And I was like, this is weird. But then by the end, you see everything that this investigation puts him through. And how do you not take a darker view of the world after that, right? Like you have, and especially like big spoilers, the whole thing that actually happened with the detective's daughter, and then what, it transpired and how this story actually took place. Like, how do you not have a little more darkness that you're dealing with? Plus the fact that he fell in love with this really weird girl in her really
That's
fucked
being
up family.
nice.
Yeah.
Really weird is being nice.
Yeah.
She was psychotic.
Oh yeah. But I mean, that's the kind of things that you do when you're sick and dying. You know what I mean? Like, you feel like somebody tells you got 3 months left to live. Hey, who am I to argue with how you're gonna try to figure out to not only live for 3 months? You know what I mean? And but I will say that Lucy Boynton, for not being in it much, killed it as that wacko Leah. And like,
oh
yeah, especially at the end during that little ceremony thing, she's putting the blood on her face, and like, basically, like, I'm like, damn, that's cold-blooded. Like, you just like got this dude hooked on your ass. You're gonna take his
when
heart.
I ask someone for a favor, that's not what I ask them.
Yeah, but then Poe was still messed up at the end when he's getting all mad at Landor about she was gonna be a wife, she's gonna be a mother. I'm like, dude, but you weren't gonna be around for any of that. Like,
but he's just crazy enough not to give a shit.
Yeah. Well, and love does weird shit to you, man. Love was a weird deal.
So, did either of you? Because what was cool about this movie is there's 2 twists in this movie.
Yeah.
Did you see both of them? I certainly did not.
No.
No. Not even. I mean, I saw. So, short of her, like, I didn't anticipate her being part of the issue, like being part of the killer trilogy or whatever you want to call it. As soon as they introduced Gillian Anderson as the mom, and they already had Toby Jones, and this is one of my issues with movies when you put actors, because I love Toby Jones, he's one of my favorites, the doctor dad dude, like, I love that actor. So when he and Gillian Anderson are the mom, I was like, this family's got some weird shit going on. And then they were leaning so heavily on the brother. I was just like, this movie has been completely straightforward so far, in my opinion. So I just leaned into that. It was the son, right? And he's doing it to try to save his sister, maybe. And I kept thinking, well, his dad's a doctor. Maybe they're trying to find a heart that they can give her a heart transplant. Maybe there's some issues there, right? So that's what I kept thinking before heart transplants were a thing. Maybe we find, you know what I mean?
Some 19th century.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, doctors do weird shit back then, man. They used to do some weird shit back then.
Well, they used to just let you bleed,
and
it was
for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of like, because, I mean, if they're telling her that she's gonna die, I could see a father who's a doctor, a physician, saying, well, she's gonna die anyway in 3 months. We can try to fix it. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a heart condition. Who knows? So that's kind of where I was going with it. So it really twisted me up when I was like, oh shit, she's a part of it. So that got me. And then I was like, okay, that's cool. It's a family affair, whatever. You know what I mean? But there were quite a few twists that I did not, just because I got into this straightforward mentality, and I just didn't expect those kind of twists at all. So no, I didn't see it coming.
I mean,
I thought
definitely
there was something with the daughter, right? I thought there was something with Maddie. Did not think that what happened was what was going to happen. I figured she was actually behind the whole thing. So I was like, oh, because they keep talking about this dude's daughter. She's got to have a bigger part to play. Once again, missed it by that much.
Yeah.
I knew the daughter had something, but I mean, the second one with Landor, no way. I was like, oh, but all I knew is because I had to pause it and I actually had to finish the last 20 minutes today instead of last night. And when I paused, I was like, because I just finished, I paused like right when the satanic ceremony was basically coming to a crashing halt. And there was, I don't know, 18, 20 minutes of it. I was like,
It's a lot of movie left.
There's a lot to end with this ending, and I was like, something. I didn't know what. I had no idea, but I was like, something's happening here that I am not picking up on, and because I was a little worried, I was like, oh no, like this is going to be a slow ending. This is going to ruin the movie because it's been good, but now it's going to lag behind. But I mean, it ramped up even further, and I didn't think it could do that.
Yeah, I will say this: with the lettering, the writing, what gives it away to Poe, I saw that. Like when he opens that letter that he pulls underneath that statue and reads it from Landor, and it's like "meet me here" or whatever the hell it was. I looked at it and went, "That looks a lot like the handwriting in that note." But I was like, "But it's kind of like they teach cursive, so maybe it was like they just had, and they're at a school. Maybe it was one of those things where they." The calligraphy part of it was a normal piece of the 1800s. And so I just was like, okay, whatever. But I did notice, I was like, God, that handwriting looks very
it's a good
much
thing we
like
got
the
rid
other
of
one.
cursive and all that embellishment, because having done like indexing for my church, it's a freaking nightmare when you got to try and decipher cursive. You need a machine, a computer to do that for you. It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was a different cursive back then too. Like they leaned really into the calligraphy act of it, the beauty and the art of it, versus just we're scribbling so that we can write real fast. And that was like, so yeah, I mean, I caught that, and I'm really, now that we're talking about it, and I remembered that, I was like, damn it, I did say that to myself. And then I'm like, fuck, I'm an idiot, because how did I miss that, right? Like, because that's the trigger for Poe. It's like, God damn it. And then I was mad too when they showed the necklace, and it had the initials of the dude.
Leroy Fry.
Yeah, I was like, oh, how did I miss that? So there was a couple moments where I was mad at myself at the end.
It's because they did a really good job with the misdirect, because it's the book that the necklace is in is his daughter's book.
Yeah.
And so you immediately say, oh, the necklace fell out, it's his daughter's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't even think twice about it. But then they do the close-up right after it falls out. And I'm like, because they just re-show that same scene, that same close-up, and you see the LF in there. I was like, God damn it, I missed that. So I was pretty pissed at myself for not catching it. But yeah, they got me, especially the whole Landor being the killer guy. And like, yeah, that killed me. I was like, son of a bitch. It was a great twist. Very Edgar Allan Poe-ish, if one would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was kind of confused for a lot of this movie, simply because of all these other kind of storylines or twists that were going on. Mm-hmm. So at the end, after we figure out that Landor's the guy who's been killing everybody, I was sitting there going, "Why'd you break up the satanic ritual?"
Yeah,
you're in the clear.
It's because he fell into a son and father-son relationship with Poe.
Yeah, but I was
couldn't lose another kid.
Because he even says like he had hoped that Poe would figure him out. I was like, dude, the one person that even has a shot at figuring it out goes under, gets killed by this group. They're gonna pin all 3 murders on him, easy.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting there going,
yeah,
not what I would have done.
I was gonna say, from the sociopaths in the group, I would have just been like, sucks to be you. In fact, I'd have lured the dad there and been like, let's just wipe this family out and I'm good. And I'll go back to living in my cottage. And we'll just say, oh, look at that. They even killed my little protege. That sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Damn. But
I think you said it best, Jay. He lost his daughter, but gained a stepson, basically. But as the acting at the end there showed, you can't Edgar you can't come back from that. Like you could even see him trying to work through that, and even tell him before he's walking out the door, like, I treasured our time, but he couldn't even finish the sentence because it was just too hard. Like I was watching it with Tay, and who really loved this movie, and I was like, yeah, like I'm sure you'd want to keep the relationship going, but both parties know like Landor used Edgar felt used, but understands kind of why he did it due to the pain, and his means kind of justify the actions in his head. That's why he burned the letter. But you can't really come back from that. It's just there's just too much.
And at the same time, like burning the letter from Edgar Allan Poe was not only like showing, hey, I love you too, but it's as much punishment. In fact, for me, it's more punishment because that's what Landor wanted. He wanted him to turn him in. He wanted him to get him hanged. He wanted him to go to jail. And not only is, to your point, not only is Edgar Allan Poe at that point looking at him as a father figure that he didn't, I mean, that he talked about that craving for having earlier on, but also he knows that if he turns him in, he's giving Landor exactly what he wants and justifying his course of action, where now Landor has to live with what he's done, which is what he doesn't want to actually do. And so by burning that letter and not turning him in, he's actually punishing him to a certain degree on top of it. So it's a great duality of where we're at. Like you're saying, Mattson, yep, they can't move forward, but he's still being merciful to him in a way, but he's also punishing him by making him live through it and deal with those consequences internally, which is going to be much worse for a guy like Landor than being hanged after the fact. So I have a question. So the very, very end, when Landor's standing on the cliff, his daughter jumped off and lets her little ribbon go. Does this dude jump too, or does he not? I love the way that it just cliffhangered you. Like, was he going to go with her, or is he going to just...
I love endings like that. It made me think of Inception with the dreidel that did it, or the top, spinning top. Mm-hmm. Did it stop? Did it keep going? And movies like that, you just love it, because the first thing I did when I was done, Jay, is turn the tape and I was like, is he dead?
Yeah.
She thinks he didn't die. He didn't jump. She thinks he stayed alive because he wanted someone else to send him to jail to kill him or something. So she didn't think he had the courage to do it. I think he died. I think
tough
he did
one, isn't it?
I think he jumped, but I don't really have what would my reasoning be for that? Let me think about it. Alec, what do you think?
This didn't even cross my mind, to be honest. Because Oshie did it. Oshie turned to me afterwards, like, did he die? And I was like, well, evidently not, because he was still standing there on top of the cliff. So in my mind, I was like, oh, he just went to go pay his respects and kind of let his daughter know that he was not going to keep avenging her, or, he let the last guy get away. As he was telling Poe, it was more of a punishment in his mind that this guy would constantly be looking over his shoulder, wondering what was coming for him. So I didn't even contemplate that he was in that situation at all. Just right over my head.
I still feel like you have a lot to live for at that point. He's got nothing.
It's true. I'd like to think, again, this is my morbidity, bibbity bobbity boop. Fuck. Morbidity. Fuck, I did it again. I'm done with that.
Morbidity.
There you go. What Alec said. That's my sociopath side. That, like, I hope he jumped. Like, that's what, like, as fucked up as that sounds. Like, I'm like, yeah, fucker. It's a good way out considering what you did. Like, right? It's very full circle. Your daughter did it. It broke you. You went against everything that you are. Killed some people. Made some dude feel like, oh shit, when's my turn coming, and leave the military. So not only now he's AWOL, so the military is going to be looking for him. Plus he thinks the killer's going to be looking for him. Okay, so now it's my turn to be done because what I planned didn't happen. And his plan was to die, because back then, if he gotten turned in, murder, you're getting hanged. Period. So, but I don't know that he did. I could definitely see like because like I don't know, murder mystery's all the rage right now, right? With like the Knives Out and Glass Onion, it wouldn't be a stretch for me to say this writer says, well, let's write a second movie that's in the same vein of this kind of dark mystery, murder mystery type thing, and now he gets to try to find his salvation by.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind it. Sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But yeah.
I just like that it gives us the opportunity to debate that.
Sure. Yeah, I was like,
I think more movies could take a page out of this movie's book and leave more up to the audience's interpretation at the end, instead of doing what a lot of movies do with 10 minutes to go when it's kind of over. They don't really know how to end it, and then they just give us too much, and you're just They're like, I didn't need that. Let me leave the movie wanting more.
Yeah.
Talk about goals for this though, right? Like, you get hired to solve the crime that you committed. During that process, you are given your next two victims by someone who was best friends with your first one by way of the diary. Like,
Yeah.
too easy.
Yeah.
Too easy.
The circumstance that it all played out within was just, and it's just the perfect, it's even more the perfect crime than, you know, Fracture, because, and not by choice, but by luck, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
just falls into your lap.
Yeah. Watch me point everybody in a wrong direction. Well, and it changes some of the conversations, right? So like when the captain, when Hitchcock keeps coming to him and asking him, what did you find out? Who is our culprit? And even at one point, was it the general or superintendent, the other head of the school? Like, they're like, we want to put it on this kid, right? He's our man. How is he not our man? And he just keeps saying, I need more time.
Yeah.
I need more time. I'm working on it. There's some things I still need to figure out. And you're like, holy shit. Those conversations, the context for them completely change, right? After you know what's going on. It's not because he didn't know what was going on. He knew exactly what the fuck happened. It's because he needed more time to get to the last dude and set that up in a way that would make sense and work. So yeah, very just genius writing. And now I'm going to have to read the book because I want to see how much better those dialogue pieces and the interesting.
Yeah, I found it as a book. I was like, oh, I'm going to read that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited.
Like all good movies usually come from a book. So
absolutely. Yeah, very good movie. Nothing better though, just to touch on again, I know Mattson, you talked about it, but that final, I don't want to say the final scene because it wasn't, but that final scene between Poe and Landor, man, it was so good.
That's going to be one of the best scenes I think I see this year for sure. In fact, I'm confident of it. Very good.
It'll be up there for sure. Yeah, when we do our next year in review at the end of the year, I think this one might come up again just because of that scene. Because that was a hell of a scene.
The only thing I'll say for this movie, and you both won't be surprised, is at times I could find this movie definitely has a slower pace. I think a lot of it's intentional, and I understood that, but it's hard not to talk about this movie and not mention the pace of this movie definitely is on the much slower crawling side, which is not a bad thing, but it definitely, and it's heavier. It's not something that I would turn around and watch like tomorrow, but there is a lot of rewatchability in this movie, but it is slower paced. Absolutely. Yeah. Until like the last 25 minutes, 25, then it just takes off. But till then, there's times where I was like, Alec, we could have advanced a little quicker, but man, the payoff at the end is worth it. Yeah.
To be honest with you, I was feeling like probably an hour into it. I'm like, oh my God, this is a 2 hour and 10-minute movie. I was like, it's interesting and the acting is really good. And I'm really intrigued by the story, but it's slow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say one thing about this movie, and this is true for a lot of slow movies that have really great writing. It's the same as what I just got done talking about with the dialogue between Landor and the superintendent and the captain, is that on looking back, when you get to the end of this movie, all of the slow pieces that I sometimes was going, is this really adding any value to this movie? Because there were a couple of scenes where I'm like even the scene with Poe and the girl, when they went on their little walk, I was like, man, this is long. Like there is a lot of going on here. And does it really add value? And it doesn't in that moment. But when you get to that scene with Landor and Poe at the end, then it really pays off. And you start to, because that, once you figure out what's really going on, you have to look back on some of those slow moments. But it is painful. I don't want to say painful, but it was a struggle even for me. A couple of times I was like, man, they need some different editing. But now I look back and I go, no, it works because the payoff was there. If the payoff had sucked, this movie would have been, I'd be shitting all over it. But the payoff was so good that it made all the buildup worth it to me. So I'm with you. I still think 2 hours and 10 minutes. I think this movie could have been an hour and 55 and been just as good.
Oh yeah, 100%. There's definitely, you already mentioned some things. They could have done the same things, but cut out some of the images, or an additional 45-second or couple minute scene of his daughter again, where we already knew. We got the idea, and they could have cut that out. A few things, and that's why this movie won't be, I mean, the top rated movie I see this year, but it's good.
Yeah, certainly some little things they could have clipped around. So, all right, should we rate it?
Let's do it.
All right, Mattson, since you've been gone for so long, dude, you get to go first, buddy.
Yeah, let me kick it off. I'm gonna give this movie a solid 4. I mentioned it towards the end, but this movie is slow. Slow enough to the point where I even like JJ. I was like in 50 minutes to an hour in, and it was weird on me a little bit. And it was funny. I turned the tail. I was like, "Are you liking this movie?" She loved it. And I thought she was gonna be kind of against it because it's slower with 38 ADHD and needing things to kind of progress a little bit. She was all enthralled. I was like, all right, well, I need to change my tune. And then the movie started to kick into high gear, and I was like, oh man, this ending, I'm just eating it up. These twists, I didn't see it. And the way the movie ended with you having to decide, is he alive? Is he dead? Awesome. The acting, awesome. I think the scenery and the imagery of throwing in some of the Easter eggs we talked about with Poe, this movie did it all. There's nothing bad about this movie except the pace of play was, for me, a detractor, where JJ just mentioned if they got it to around a minute, the hour and 50, I think this movie, I might have given it a 5. Like, I really thinking about it, there isn't really anything I dislike except the length. But for that, I think it's an absolutely solid 4. Maybe if I rethink about it, I give it a 4.5 maybe, but I feel confident with a great 4. Watch this movie. Just because it came out in Netflix doesn't mean it's crap. It's probably the best thing Netflix has released in a while. Awesome movie. Totally unexpected. And maybe that's part of it, is I didn't know what I was watching, but man, it really exceeded my expectations.
Love it. All right, Alec.
All right. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, and we are on that murder mystery kick. I will say that one thing that I really enjoyed that this did that Fracture and Glass Onion didn't was that double twist.
Yeah.
The rewatchability now is there for me more so than those other movies, because you have this added layer of there's not necessarily a second killer, but a second group involved. So much so that, revisiting this year in a couple years will feel like rewatching it from the beginning. And it will still have that kind of twist that'll get me and whatever. I also really enjoyed, more so than the last scene with Christian Bale and Henry Melling, the first scene where they are talking about the note. And Christian Bale is just helping him solve the note that he wrote. And you could just see the excitement on Edgar Allan Poe's face. And it was just beautiful. Absolutely beautifully done. I'm going to go probably 4.5. Phenomenal movie. The pacing was at times not really there. And even though the story was great, there was times where I was kind of lost or confused because of there was so much going on, to the point where I was like having to pull myself out almost to get my bearings. So that would be the only reason why I dock it, but I will definitely be watching this again.
Yeah. I'm going to join you. I'm going to give it a 4. And I think for me, I'm with you, Mattson. If this had been an hour and 50 minutes, so I have 2 scenes that really stick out to me that contradicted each other in pacing and time. And that is the card playing scene between the cadets when they invited him into his, to be honest with you, like, I feel like that entire scene didn't need to be there because of the suspicion that they throw on that kid from the beginning, and they lean into it all the way through. And then when the conversation between Poe and the sister happens on their walk, she also implicates her brother in so many things by that conversation, saying he's got, he means well, but he's got a temper, or whatever it was. I don't remember the exact dialogue, but you could have cut out that whole 5 or 6 minute scene of Poe trying to infiltrate that, and I don't think it would have changed this movie. And that right there gets you closer to that 2 hour mark. So I just think there was enough in this movie to cut back that would have made it. And I promise, if it had been an hour and 50 minutes and got rid of some of that, trim that fat, it'd have been a 5 for me, because it's rare that a movie gets me on 1 twist, let alone 2. So when I didn't see any of it coming, I was like, oh shit, they got me. And I don't know, maybe that's me being harsh on it, because maybe those slow moments drilled me into like what the fuck's going on enough that I missed enough but I still don't think I'd have got the twists. I mean, it was just so well done across the board, hiding the twist and the misdirection, like Alec said. So that's why I'm giving it a 4. I've been bouncing 4 and 4.5, but I'm going to leave it at a 4. Because the other piece that that distracted me was Robert Duvall's character. Like it was interesting to see him in there, but I was like, there's the only reason he's there is to have Robert Duvall in your movie. Like he didn't really add any value other than it made him feel like he was what solved the murder. But the dude technically pretty much already knew. He just didn't know the family connection to that, the author of that weird book. So anyway, I just thought there was some weird things in there that didn't need to be there for me. So that's the big reason. But other than that, I will definitely watch this movie. In fact, I'm looking forward to rewatching it because I want to see the first hour and 40 minutes of this movie knowing the end, to see what that changes the perspective and the context of all the other stuff that happens before the twists are revealed. Because this movie's so smartly written that I know it's going to change the outlook of how everything happens before those twists, and everything that I missed. I'm looking forward to seeing that. So I will probably be rewatching it soon. It's a great way to kick the year off. 2 double 5s and a almost 5 in the first 3 movies this year. That's batshit. So
yeah, I mean, that doesn't happen very often for us. But I will say this movie's ending, if I have to even go on a limb right now, is going to be probably an absolutely top 5, probably top 3, if not number 1 for a movie I see this year. Like it's going to be hard to top.
Yeah, the bar is pretty high for an ending and some twists for this year. We'll see. Well, there it is. That is The Pale Blue Eye. Alec, tell everybody where they can find us.
Happy to. Thank you for tuning in to our episode of The Pale Blue Eye. It was for sure a peak intellectual film. I would like to introduce everyone to the new guy, Mattson. It's been so long since he's been back. I feel that we need to reintroduce him. You can check us out wherever the finest of podcasts can be found. This includes esteemed locations such as Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and 4chan. All at What's Our Verdict, but not actually on 4chan. JJ won't let me. JJ is also breaking into uncharted territory, as he mentioned at the beginning of the episode, and looking to starting a live streaming some video game. I think he called it El Último de Nosotros because he thinks he is funny. But keep an eye out for that and check out social accounts for date and times. I believe the first one we are doing is going to be Tuesday the 17th at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, somewhere around there. So keep an eye out for that post when it comes. We are also on Patreon, and by the time this is released, we probably should have our very first Patreon special released. Sorry for the delay, Charles. And so join us there will yield new episodes not acceptable for public viewing, in addition to all sorts of bloops and shenanigans. We appreciate you joining another first-class episode, and I will turn it back over to the King of Crash, the Titan of Terror, JJ Crowder.
That's right. Thanks, Alec. Always a good time. It's good to have the new guy here. Shit was great. It's always one joke that gets me in his little spiel, so that was a good one. Yeah. So, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinemagic out.
Whoa!